Hello there, and welcome to ZeroXP. We are a show looking to celebrate fandom one game or one game series at a time. I'm John, and I'm here with my co-host, who's eaten so many crunchy chicks in his time, I kind of don't want to hang out with him anymore. Patrick.
Hello.
On today's show, we're going to be talking a little bit about changes coming to the podcast and the YouTube, which you may have already noticed. We're going to be talking about the Xbox Pope, if you're not familiar with him, and the very cool piece of art that he produced recently. And we'll be running down our gameplay show. So we'll be talking about Hobbes, Skorm and Avo, the Arena, Jack of Blades, and Whisper as we get a little further into Fable the Lost Chapters and give you a preview of what's to come next. So as I mentioned a second ago, we want to talk just a little bit about kind of how the podcast and the YouTube channel are starting to take shape. I know we're only a handful of episodes in, so I hope that we're not going to ruffle too many feathers by kind of honing some things in. Going forward, we want to really kind of draw attention, I guess, to the YouTube channel, and the reason is because we realize that this is kind of a visual medium in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
And Patrick's been producing some pretty good stuff with the videos so far. We've been really pleased with a lot of the feedback we're getting, a lot of the comments we're receiving, and we think it's kind of a good direction to head in.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't something we planned on from the beginning, but as I didn't originally plan on doing video editing, but I experimented with it, and you got to be able to adapt a little bit, because we had a vision going in, but sometimes the things we thought might not always work the best.
And I think that there's still going to be changes to come. We're new to this, and we're just getting a lot of great feedback from people, and some things are happening that are a little unexpected. So we did want to reassure that if you do prefer the podcast form, the podcast is going to continue probably more so in the pure idea that we started it in.
Yeah.
And it's going to be purely one game or one game series at a time, specific, for the foreseeable future with Fable, because we will be running down all things Fable, be it what's to come and what's already, been in the past.
Considering where we are right now, we still got a lot of Fable to cover.
Exactly, and we're excited to cover it. Believe me, that hasn't changed. Our love of the series has only, I think, maybe gotten bigger over the last few months, which is hard to do because, we're super fans in that regard. But the YouTube is going to branch out a little bit more. You will see some bonus episodes coming through the podcast feed, but some things are just so visual, and they're going to be things that we just discuss so briefly that we probably won't be bringing to the podcast channel.
There's just going to be certain things that don't make sense for the channel.
Exactly. So for the people that are listening to the podcast specifically, we just want to point out that you're still going to get a show bi-monthly, which is the promise that we made from the beginning. It is going to be completely Fable-centric. But if you enjoy getting to see the visual side of these things, the podcast will be posted on the YouTube with some visual enhancements, and we're going to be doing quite a few just kind of at our own whim, and then also based off fan feedback, videos that are maybe not always just Fable.
No.
But definitely game-related.
Yep.
So we just wanted to let you know, and we hope you'll stick with us, because we seem to be... things seem to be going really good, and we can't thank you enough for joining us for these things. Yeah,
we've definitely gotten a lot more views and feedback than we expected. Even though we're still a very small channel, we're also a very new channel.
Yep.
Like, I didn't think we'd get 20 views hardly ever.
Yeah.
And we have a multiplayer video that's over 300 views at this point.
So we're not exactly blowing things out of the water, but it's growing. And we'll continue to change going forward, and we just hope you'll stay with us as we do.
Thank you.
So next up this week, we want to talk about somebody who is an influencer on Twitter. You can also find him on Instagram. And if you're not following him, I suggest you give him a look, because he's very talented. And we're talking about the Xbox Pope.
Yep.
He goes by Xbox Pope, at Xbox Pope on Twitter, and his Instagram is Pope Art, I believe.
Yes.
Randomly, we got very lucky. This guy is absolutely wonderful with some of the mock-ups he does. And if you haven't followed him, what it is he takes PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X's, and I'm assuming, whatever else comes in the future, he may be open to be doing. But he'll take a game franchise, or he'll take a web series, or some kind of or a pop culture, entity of some sort, and he creates his own art based on these things, and then does custom consoles. They're not ones that you can buy, but it's just kind of mock-ups of what they would look like if they did one.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are phenomenal. We've been watching this guy for quite some time, and randomly last week I had asked him, how do we get one of these for our show that's Fable related? And he graciously was like, just ask for it, which I was in shock. I was on break, actually, from work, and was just like, I don't even know how to respond to this right now.
Well, basically the way John responded to it was he sent me a message, and then I had to... He wanted some assets, and I had to scramble like crazy, because I didn't want to look unprofessional and unprepared, but yet... I was unprepared because I didn't even make the comment.
Yeah, we just didn't expect it to happen.
Yep.
But if you haven't checked it out, I mean, we'll post it for the video, but if you're listening to the audio, he took the artwork from the Fable teaser that they released last month, and if you're familiar with it, the foresty scene with the fairy and the mushrooms and kind of the beautiful environment that they built there. But he took it, and it almost looks like a painting.
Yeah.
And it transcribed it to the console, and we're lucky enough that he did include our logo. There's if you look at the right handle of the controller, if you look at the bottom of the system, you'll see kind of a shadowing of our logo, and it's also titled as the
ZeroXP Series X.
Yeah. So. It's not just because it's for us, but it is Fable related, which if you're listening, I'm assuming that you're here for that kind of content. You should really check it out. The guy does some absolutely mind-blowing, phenomenal things. I really, and not just the Fable one. There's been other podcasts even that I'm like, hey, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I mean, the franchises that he chooses, there's Miles Morales, PS5 that I'm like, I can't understand why Sony wouldn't contact him and try to get those
especially
things made.
I mean, if you ever saw the Spider-Man PS4, I'm like,
yep, yeah,
this is so much better.
Yeah, I mean, they're realistic enough looking that they seem like they'd be feasible, and it's kind of baffling why some of these companies haven't tried to hit him up to get some of these ideas. But go out there, show him some love. Follow him, like his stuff. It's really cool, and we just kind of wanted to drive some attention towards it because he did something really cool and unexpected at our behest, but beyond that, his talent alone.
I mean, it's impressive what he was able to do with basically a screenshot, which thank you, Matthew Allen, who, if you're in the Fable community, you probably know who he is. I think he basically worked off-site for Lionhead a little bit at one point.
I don't know if he did in any official capacity, but I know that, he definitely moderated the boards back in the day.
Yeah.
And then he did the
Kinseed Kickstarter.
And there was it the Bullhead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
forums for a while.
Yeah.
That was basically the Lionhead forum when there was no more Lionhead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so thank you to him for multiple things and providing that, because I needed it on a whim. I mean, he already had made it, but I'm like, oh, great, I can just grab this and use it.
Yep.
And it looked amazing.
Yep. Also a great guy to follow if you follow. And look up Kinseed. I can't believe we haven't talked about that yet.
No, we haven't yet.
I tell you what, next episode, let's maybe do a little breakdown. Because Kinseed's a really cool game, and if you love Fable, it's got the pedigree. There are the developers on it are from Lionhead, who worked on the original Fable.
And it goes heavy into the sim elements.
Yes.
Very heavy.
Yeah, it's really great, especially if you like games like Stardew Valley and things of that. It's like that with all of the, Fable elements added into it, and it's really cool. Very unique, very beautiful art style. But let's make a note to talk about that.
Important to note, it's in early access, but it's only $10.
Yep, totally worth it too. All right, so let's get into the Fable gameplay. I've been aching to kind of get back into the story, so I'm looking forward to this. We're going to start off by talking about a quest that burns me ever so badly, but I always have to do it as I play through the game. And that is the Fable Hobbe Cave quest, where you start off by talking to little old Granny at Rose Cottage.
Yep. She seems sweet.
Oh, yeah, seems real nice, right?
Yeah.
And she asks us to go looking for her missing grandson. He's a rambunctious little youth that likes to search around in the Hobbe Cave, and she's afraid he's gotten into too much trouble this time.
Spoiler alert, he has.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of story from that point on until you meet the grandson. You find the Hobbe Cave. Oh,
that's not fully true. I mean, we do, which you don't have to encounter him, but there is a side chamber where you meet a bandit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to get into that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but no, go ahead.
Oh, I guess the reason why I jumped in is usually I've always met him first before the grandson.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I mean, there's not really a lot to it, but it does add a nice touch. Basically, all the other bandits that he went down there with, they've already been killed. He heard them screaming, which he doesn't mind because that means that he can get more treasure. And he definitely sees you as a bit of a benefit as a hero that, hey, this guy can help me and we can split it 50-50 and I can actually survive this journey.
Yep. And I forget, is there an option to tell him no from the get-go, or is he going with you no matter what?
I believe that there is an option to say no.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever actually said no.
I mean, I always, especially in this mission, I always take him with me.
Yeah.
I mean, anything helps.
Yep.
Because you are just inundated with Hobbes all over the place, and depending on your power level at that point, I actually normally get to this quest earlier in the game, I think, than Patrick does, which we didn't realize was a thing until recently.
Yeah.
I'm normally pretty low powered when I get there.
Yeah.
Are you?
I've pretty well always saved it till later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No.
So normally I got good weapons and I'm a bit stronger, but it's still,
for me it's like hacking my way through it.
It's still hacking your way through, though.
Is it? Okay.
Because there's so many of them and they just keep coming.
Yeah, which is great for experience, but it can be a little frustrating because the thing is once you pick up that bandit, you have to decide, am I going to help keep this guy alive, or do you really care? And when you get down into the bottom chamber of the Hobbe Cave, you come upon, is that your first pixie, or?
I don't think so. I think it might actually just depend on what route you go.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess if I'm getting there earlier, it could be, versus if you're getting there later, they're in different places. And you find out that she's imprisoned, the grandson, and she's willing to make a swap for the bandit, basically. You can let that bandit take his place.
Bad trade.
Yeah. And I tend to play through as good. I don't feel like the bandit deserves that either. And I will generally tell her no, which just unleashes hell, because Hobbes come from all over the place. She starts attacking you. I mean, everything is just crazy.
Yeah, even giving the guy away, Hobbes still attacked me.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the nymph on me.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that makes a big difference, though. The nymphs can be, I said pixie, but nymphs. The nymphs can be kind of a pain if you don't have your bow skills up, or at least some sort of magic.
They can be a pain in the butt when they're flying around and you got 40 Hobbes.
Exactly.
For sure, because you're just getting attacked and you want to melee them, and at the same time you got something you need to shoot down.
So from that point on, you get the grandson regardless of if you make the trade or not, and you need him to follow you out of the cave. He's got a life bar, so you also have to keep him alive.
Yes.
And I already don't really care for escort quests all that much. I am trying to hold in my inner rage. Out of all the Fables, depending on the day, the Lost Chapters is my favorite game ever.
Come on.
And then sometimes it fluctuates a little bit. On a day that you catch me playing this mission, I may not claim that it's my favorite game ever.
We have to get out of this place.
The Lost Chapters definitely has more escort missions than the rest of them.
Yes. But this one in particular, I could deal with if the kid would just shut up. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Once again, that's why I said bad trade.
Yes.
I would take the option just to leave him.
After playing it through at least once, I think I might too.
Yeah.
I mean, he whines, the voice actor, I believe, actually changes. It's not the kid who does it's not the kid who, or it's not the voice who is voicing the kid the end of the mission, it is this whiny, tiny kid who is just begging you to save him, please. And regardless of how hard you're trying to do it, he whines and he whines and he whines.
And he helps you in no way.
Not at all.
I mean, I don't expect him to fight, but don't just stand there and get attacked.
Right.
Move around. Try to not get hit by something.
Exactly.
Or at least shut up.
Of course, this is all in jest. It's just kind of to drum up those feelings, if you know what we're talking about. With
Everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Long story short, you get out of the cave with the kid because you can't finish that mission without him. You take him back to old Granny, and Granny's like, "Oh, I'm so happy you brought back my grandson." And there's a twist.
Yeah.
Turns out that Granny's been sending her grandson into those caves to look. Was it for treasure?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and things to sell. And the grandson's not real fond of old Granny, so you have the option to let him run away or basically leave him with her in a life of servitude. As much as the kid annoys me, I always try to let him go. And funny enough, if you're just feeling kind of that whim that day, you can marry Granny when it's all said and done.
So what's crazy, though, is I got secret information that kid is the hero in the new Fable game.
No,
that is not true.
That is not
true.
Don't listen to him. If you want to find him, you can find him at Captain Osiris on Twitter.
Just interact with us. I don't care.
Yeah, send him lots of hate for that. That's a terrible idea. And that kid would be super, well, I don't know.
Well, we don't know
when
it
I was going to
takes
say
place.
he'll be super old, but we have no idea.
He could be 14.
Yeah. Okay. So in the last episode, we alluded to a few locations that are in the Witchwood/Knothole Glade area. And in this episode, we're going to get into those a bit more. Two of them are, I'd say, intrinsically tied together.
Yeah.
And those locations are the Temple of Avo and the Chapel of Scorm. So to give you a little bit of background, we're going to turn to the Fable fandom wiki and kind of run those down a little bit because they're very cool locations in the game, not only visually, but because of their functionality, and give you a little bit of lore into those. So let's start with the Chapel of Scorm. The Chapel of Scorm can be reached by taking a second path away from Darkwood Camp, just to kind of give you an idea where the location is. It's located in Fable the Lost Chapters and Fable the Anniversary. It is a deadly shrine dedicated to the Devil of Albion, Skorm. Here, evil heroes can donate other people's blood to worshippers of Skorm to receive evil gifts. This is also a place where you can obtain the ultimate bow in the game, which is Skorm's bow. Even when I play through good, I do take a side route to make a couple sacrifices to get that bow.
It's easy to do. I mean, you can kind of justify it that you can just grab mercenaries, sacrifice them, and then they come back anyways.
Yeah, sure. That's not. There's nothing more moralistically wrong with that at all.
I don't know what trip they took. It might be to a great beach somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works. But either way, that bow, if you're playing through, it is worth getting because it has an unlimited power, I guess, build.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know a better way to put it. But you can essentially pull back on the bowstring, and it will just build and build and build and build.
It's
and build
great.
Power.
It's
yeah.
the best weapon in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I'm being fair as more of a melee player, that I know that's the best weapon in the game.
I'd say that's true. Yeah, and it comes in handy. It's versatile. So, I mean, what do you think about this location, Patrick?
I love it. I mean, I guess it's a simple thing, but the aesthetic of you walk in and it's the trees are not very lively, and then you got the red in the sky, but you still get the stars.
Yep.
So it's evil, but it's beautiful in a way.
It was a simple effect of putting a red haze over the entire environment that made it feel different. Because you normally come across it while you're escorting the traders to Barrowfield pretty early on, if you do some searching anyways. And you've been going through Darkwood, and it's gray and kind of bluish in tones, and it's just swampy and murky, and then you hit this area that's just hazed in red.
Yeah.
And I mean, almost creepy in some aspects. It's definitely unique, and the statues, the gargoyles and things, really just everything brings you into the culmination of walking up to the chapel.
You already know this place is up to no good.
Oh, yeah. There's no hiding that. And the way that you sacrifice people, you get there, and it's just two hooded guys that are like, well, you going to do this?
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, they're definitely not going on
sacrifice.
vacation. Yeah. Very, very cool. And it's kind of a precursor for some things to come in the later games, too. But the mood of it is definitely one of the cooler things. There is a little bit of, I guess, insight that we got into these temples, which we'll touch on probably once we talk about them both.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it changed the way I look at Albion as a whole.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, for sure. But before we do that, let's talk about the Temple of Avo. The Temple of Avo is a small yet useful building dedicated to the alignment to the light side of Albion. So
they're
I guess
good.
you would say, the god versus the devil side. And oddly, I don't find it quite as illuminated as I do the Chapel of Scorm. It can be found near Knothole Glade. Inside the temple is a circular fountain that accepts gold donations. If you donate a large amount of gold, 2 acolytes will gift you with rewards, kind of in the same way that the Chapel of Scorm works. Evil characters can gain more good that way if you decide you didn't want to be evil, so that's kind of a plus. You can use that to your advantage. And if you donate enough, you will get it's the Sentius, which is it's a legendary weapon. It's a grimace, which is basically a large spike stick. Yeah. Not one of the weapons I use too often.
That's my main melee, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, well, you tend to play with heavier weapons, don't you?
Yeah.
I like to be quick. So we've covered both of them, and we're going to jump ahead just a little bit, because if you talk to the Oracle that comes later in the game, we find out that both of these aren't quite what they seem. The Oracle claims that Avo does not exist, and that Avo's temple was simply built in a place where willpower was strong, tending towards good and healing those who stood there. The Oracle cynically states that a ruthless traitor who discovered this location sensed an opportunity, and he invented Avo and constructed his temple there, specifically to extract gold from those who felt the power, so to speak. Likewise, the same traitor allegedly built the Chapel of Scorm within the evil nexus of Darkwood for similar profiteering motives. I don't really know what he would profit off of having people sacrificed in that spot, but who knows?
Well, I guess no one would go to the Temple of Avo if there wasn't the Chapel of Scorm, because they kind of need something to be afraid of.
That actually makes a lot of sense. You got a good point there. So we've been lucky enough to correspond with Dene Carter, who was the creative director on Fable the Lost Chapters. And Patrick had a conversation with him that kind of regarded these things, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
Well, I was playing through Fable 2, and I know a lot of people, I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I think it's important to kind of show how it came up. I was asking him because there's a character, like a figure in the Shadow Court in Fable 2 that looks like Teresa, and people had questions about that for many years, and I was playing through Fable 2, and I was like, he said he would answer questions, and while I'm thinking about it, I'm just gonna ask him. But that's a conversation we'll have when we talk about Fable 2.
Yep.
But he gave a lot, like, I thought it would be a quick yes or no answer to that. Mm-hmm. He gave a lot more detail than I ever expected him to give. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it, well, it really does relate to Fable the Lost Chapters, so we're just going to go ahead and talk about that part now. He says, I was never keen on the Avo and Skorm nonsense. As to me, the weirder powers in Albion were always conjured up by belief, will of the inhabitants. Albion just happens to be a place where belief/will is really effective, unlike our own world where you have to jump through a stupid number of hoops just to get it all to work.
So I thought this was really cool because essentially the idea is that it's not that these magic deposits just work that way. Yeah. It's because since people believe in what they're being told, that it gains those powers, right? Essentially.
It was funny because I asked a question and then he actually answered another question that I had thought of before, and I know most players have thought of before, and he just randomly answered it when I wasn't even thinking of it. Like, how do these things exist in the way they do? Because there is magic behind them somehow, but like, I'm like, if they're fake, how do those people float and then burn in the fire like that?
Yep, and it's just the perception that enough people have given power to that, I guess, version of will as an existence.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've got more coming from Dean as this goes on. He's been incredibly gracious. Again, there's just been so many cornerstones we've been able to touch early that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
Because we're waiting to get to certain points in the games and kind of in the podcast.
Sometimes that makes it a bit of a pain because, like, I'm like, I want to tell you this thing I learned now, but everything has a place and a time.
But yeah, if you give Dean a follow on Twitter, he's just entertaining as heck. He dabbles in music. He's working on a game called Moonring.
Yes.
Which you can actually, he'll ask questions to the community about and get insights and thoughts on things like that. He's just really been a great guy and a very cool friend to us and our show so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great guy, and really, I feel like he doesn't get enough attention when it comes to Fable because, I mean, him and Simon did co-create it.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I mean, Peter deserves a lot of credit too, don't get me wrong, but people think it was basically all him a lot of times because he was the talking head, but especially the first two Fables because he left after 2. I mean, these are not fully, but these are very much his brainchild.
Exactly.
And I think he, I think we should appreciate him for that because we are all huge fans of it. And talking about Fable on Twitter, he does genuinely love it.
Oh yeah, and if you go back through his posts, he's posted, different, just kind of, I don't want to say documents because a lot of it's just stuff he wrote down in notebooks and things like that, but just little behind-the-scenes tidbits and whatnot. And we did clear it with him that he was okay with us sharing our conversations before we did this. As I said, he's been just incredibly gracious and, I mean, truly an inspiration for us to continue to go with this. The man is just unbelievably creative.
Absolutely.
And you can find him on Twitter at Fluttermind.
Yes, which is his studio name also.
Yep. So, I mean, give him a look up, and if not, we'll have more coming from him later. Thanks, Dean. So we're going to finish out this show talking about the arena, but before we get into that, we got a quick word from this week's sponsor. What's wrong, Patrick?
What's wrong? Well, what time is it?
The time? It's about noon, I guess.
Exactly. It's noon, and I already have a 5 o'clock shadow.
Oh, I see. Well, apparently you haven't heard about this week's product. You can stay smooth all day long by using Jack of Blades Blade Brigade 5-bladed razor blades.
Jack of Blades Blade Brigade 5-bladed razor blades, you say?
Yep. Each patented blade cuts so close, your whiskers will retreat into your face just to avoid the cut. See?
John, you're bleeding.
What? Huh? I feel a little lightheaded.
Here, John, use these twin-blade banded Band-Aids.
Are you nuts? Those only make the wounds worse.
Okay, ZeroXP Podcast has decided not to endorse Jack of Blades Blade Brigade 5-blade razor blades. Hello, emergency services? I'm gonna need, it's blood, it's everywhere.
So we are running a little bit longer than we had planned this week. Maybe my Hobbe Cave rant was a little too extreme. But we are going to cover the arena next, and we'll probably save what happens to Whisper in the long run and Jack of Blades for the next show. But the arena is such a big deal, we wanted to make sure that we had enough time to cover it.
Yep.
After the fall of the Old Kingdom, Albion still found itself inhabited by heroes. Men and women of great power who were equally capable of performing great good or horrible evil. During the Anarchist period and ensuing Fallow Wars, the clashes of these heroes became something of a legend. Then arose Albion's savior, Nostro. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. But put a pin in that, because he's a heck of a character. We have to mention Nostro because he's the one who commissioned the Witchwood Arena to be built in the first place. It was a giant coliseum for the intended use of being a venue in which anyone could settle disputes in the public. Eventually, these bouts were arranged in advance, and people would come for miles to watch the duels. However, under the sway of another character who we'll be talking about, the arena was debased into nothing more than a popular source of entertainment. Creatures were eventually brought into it for would-be heroes to duel in combat, and even after Nostro died, the arena continued to grow in fame. It would eventually become Albion's greatest attraction, and people would travel from all over to come see it. The most famous champions of the arena never took a break in between battles, though, as far as we know, Jack of Blades and Thunder were the only two heroes to ever accomplish the feat, until our hero came along. So in this part of the story, we've been given an invitation to the arena from the Not-Whole-Glade chief, actually, because of the work that we did there, taking out the White Balverine. And your reputation at this point in the game is starting to grow to a point that you've got a little bit of fame behind you. People know who you are, and they're not laughing at you anymore for chasing chickens.
By this time, my character's name is Arseface.
Oh, even better. Yeah, that's
it
so
made
nice.
It funnier.
Yeah.
which you will be probably seeing in the video right now if you're watching on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment, I give you Arseface.
I'm not as brave as you are. I normally try to go, I'm Hood, or I'm the Ranger, or something like that. But yeah, Arseface suits you.
Yep.
But so we go to the arena, and the arena is also a very cool place. It's got big wooden doors, and as you walk through, you see a hall of past heroes who have gained fame from the arena, fighting in it, and just got a reputation that's helped build the just the overall presentation of the arena itself.
And a very giddy guard talking about it.
Yes, yeah, he's basically Albion's biggest fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost like a tour guide by that point.
That's kind of how I felt too. Yeah, definitely. He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
He maybe needs a raise.
Yep.
So we're waiting to get into the arena. There's a shop there where you can kind of pick up gear, any last-minute stuff, any potions, things like that you think you might need going into it. The way that the arena is structured is once you're finally called, and there's a cast of characters that are sitting there waiting to get in.
Yeah.
They've got a caged Balverine waiting outside.
Yeah, a guy giving you instructions, which I thought was pretty entertaining.
Yeah. The whole thing is well presented.
Yeah, I like that they didn't just give you a list, that they
aspects.
had someone addressing the group.
Yeah, and it wasn't in text like it was part of a video game.
Yeah.
It was actually like, hey, this is orientation for your death, in a way.
Pretty much.
But as far as going into it, before we get into the actual arena itself, Patrick, have you ever come out of the arena, or have you always played all the way through?
I've always played all the way through.
I have too. You do have
Luckily,
the option.
I had enough potions every time.
Yeah, the first time
But
I played,
now,
it was a struggle, and I
Yeah.
may have saved and had to, go back into it a couple times just because I refused.
I don't think I've ever done that, but I want to say I was cutting it close to the point where I think I was using the the revive potions. I'm blanking on the name right now.
The vials.
Yeah.
I just think that's kind of it's a cool option, but you get a bonus every time you don't leave. And it's a good way, if you haven't found a way to make money up until that point, it's a good way to go ahead and kind of get some cash in your bank to go out and buy some of the cooler gear. But as we're playing through it, there's some enemies we wanted to talk about real quick, because either they're tough or they aren't found anywhere else in the game, which also I think helps make the arena feel unique.
Yeah. And there's a specific, we're not going to cover them too much, but there was a specific group of bandits.
Yeah. So there's bandits you fight, there's Balverines, there are, I think you fight bugs. It kind of takes you through the different levels of enemies throughout the game.
Up.
Yeah, you meet the undead, which could be the first time you've come across them if you haven't done it anywhere else in the game so far.
Yeah.
And then you get to, I hate them, the two rock trolls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the more frustrating
relentless
parts of the game, but it's manageable.
Yeah.
That's where your range, I think, really, really comes in.
Well, and once you figure out, that they can deal damage to each other, right?
Yes, yeah. You use one to shield yourself from the other.
Yeah, I just take damage and I hide behind one of them. And even though I still take damage, at least it's hurting that troll at the same time it's hurting me a little bit.
Yep, strategy.
Potion up and hit him, and potion up and hit him.
Exactly. We also fight the Arachnox. Is that right? The Arachnox? Am I saying it right?
I'm pretty sure that's how it's said.
Okay, which is a giant scorpion.
Yes.
Which is incredibly cool.
Yeah. It's one of those things, if you watched, we have an enemies tier maker where we rank them. Mm-hmm. And going back as I was editing, I had replayed the arena since then, and I'm kind of like, I think I didn't like them as much as I do now. Like, I guess going back and playing it recently, I was like, okay, no, these were cooler than I thought they were. Like, not that I didn't like them, but at the time, but I think I like them more, I realized.
Yeah, and that could just be, again, the hype that we have around the game right now.
Yeah.
It kind of amps things up a little bit. But the Arachnox was always definitely unique.
Yeah, it's a unique boss fight, and I guess in hindsight, I didn't realize it as much.
Okay, I get that, yeah. There's another twist going on in the arena in which they bring in a familiar face that we haven't seen in quite some time, and Whisper comes to join you in battle. It kind of... I love this because, again, I'm a Whisper supporter.
Yes.
I really like the character. But bringing her back kind of harkens back. At this point, like, you're in your, I think you're, mid-30s game-wise?
So
it's been a long time, and this is somebody that you haven't really seen since you left your early stages of the guild. So to kind of have that come back, you see her, she's not in her guild, wardrobe anymore, she's grown up, but you get that little bit of rivalry that you felt. It kind of takes you back to
She's got some extra abilities, too, at this point.
Yes, but it takes you back to your childhood and gives you that, like, oh, well, I can take out more enemies than she can.
Yeah, I was taking notes, and I kind of realized I didn't notice beforehand. She can do the Assassin's Rush at this point.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's a will ability.
Yeah, it's pretty... Well, I mean, I think she was a skill hero.
Yeah.
It's really neat, and it was a good way to bring that character back. But before it's all said and done, we're met by the Jack of Blades, who I thought he'd been destroyed by William the Black.
Yep.
So there's some questions going on there, and even stranger... Everybody loves him.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why that is, but I also think it's kind of interesting that you read all these tales and he comes back and everybody's like, yeah, cool, that's normal.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, we don't know how many times people have come back before in the Albion universe. I mean, there might be stories there we don't know about, maybe, but to me, it just seems weird.
And when we get into him with the next episode, which we will, we'll probably maybe play around with some theories about that, or kind of how that works, just kind of in reflection of our own society. But I don't know. I just think that's funny, knowing that we know the tale of Albion at this point. How terrible he was.
Yeah.
That people are like, yeah,
he's cool. That was a long time ago. Get over it.
But aside from that, the first thing he does is present you with hey, there can only be one champion, and you have to fight Whisper in a combat to the death. Yeah,
and I mean, this is where I really don't understand why people hate Whisper so much, because she gives you, when you're supposed to fight, she basically just says, I'm going to put on a good show, but I'm not going to kill you. And people talk like she doesn't respect you, but she obviously does, because she doesn't mind showing you up, but she does not want to kill you.
Right.
She cares about you way too much.
Exactly, yeah. And especially as adults, I think it's something that, you gain sight as you get older and wisdom, and you look back at things differently than when you lived them in your younger days. And that was definitely something that I think could even play into the character, where she's like, no, this is not, we're not kids. This is not a bad person. He doesn't deserve this. And at the same time, you have to make that decision as well, because ultimately, in order to continue the game, you do defeat Whisper.
Yeah.
And again, even when I'm playing through just based off decision, where I'm not leaning to the good or leaning to the bad side of the character, I let her live because she never really had done anything to make me want her to die necessarily.
Yes.
She's just kind of obnoxious at different times.
I mean, I think, this is the only time I've killed her, just because I'm just trying to experience the other side. And even in gameplays before where I tried to go the evil route or whatever, make the bad choice, I let her live. I don't want to kill her.
Yeah, so depending on how you play the game, this may be the last time you encounter Whisper. But if not, we've got a little bit more on her later, which we'll share. We talked to the Jack of Blades a little bit as he kind of does the tour guidey thing and takes you back through the hall. And he comes across a statue of a familiar face to you, something that takes you way back to the very beginning of the game before even we knew what was going on. And we're going to save that for next time. We'll pick up there. So what do you say, Patrick? Are you ready to shut this down?
Yep, let's end it. Before we go, we'd like to give a thanks to those who helped contribute to the show. ZeroXP logo was designed by Jameson Johns. You can find him at behance.net/Jameson Johns. Music provided by Odd Reference. You can find him at facebook.com/odd.reference. A lot of the information used on this episode was provided by the Fable wiki page. You can find our podcast on Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Deezer, as well as many other popular podcast providers. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. Check out our YouTube page at ZeroXP Webcast for an added visual experience. Be sure to like and subscribe. And leave a comment. I respond to all of them.
And before we go, we want to say a quick thanks to those who have helped inspire us to do this show. Thank you, Xbox Pope. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Damien. And until next time, as always, just stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
Don't kill
Bye-bye-bye.
Whisper.
Bye-bye.